Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's In-Learning Partnership program. We are very fortunate today to be focusing on Portrait of a Graduate, something that's very relevant to our students, to our educators, to our communities, to our state. And so we have a great lineup of presenters today, leading off with Jason Callahan, who is Assistant Secretary of Education for the Indiana Department of Education. And he's going to talk and focus on the Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed. Thanks, Jason, for joining.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here and to talk about Indiana GPS, or Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed, and really want to thank Central Indiana Education Service Center as well for their support of Portrait of a Grad and efforts across the state. So, as Andy said, I'm the Assistant Secretary of Student Pathways and Opportunities for the Department of Ed. That's over accountability, or traditionally accountability, school improvement, title, student pathways, school safety, student school, family engagement. This work really goes back to last legislative session in House Enrolled Act 1514, which charged the department to create a multiple measure dashboard. And so as we sat down and we started thinking about accountability systems, and it is not a surprise to anybody, the current accountability system for our state and in many states really has been focused on academic mastery. And the credential of currency is a high school diploma. So we had standardized tests for English and math, and graduation rates, and then random acts of CCR, college career readiness. And we wanted to build a system, use 1514 to build a system that moved away from some of the proxies that we've used in the past, because we felt like they were limiting in their storytelling. And so if we could use enough indicators and move beyond just academic mastery, maybe we could tell a truer, more accurate story of how students are being successful in our K-12 systems. And so as we were thinking about indicators, we felt like we really need to take a step back and define the profile of a graduate for every Indiana child. And so that's where we started back last spring, and really looking at the state of Indiana, at LEAs and portraits of grad across the state, also looking at other states. As those of you who have heard this before know, we looked to Utah. We liked their profile in sort of the process that they undertook in really engaging stakeholders in the process. But their characteristics were 13. And so we knew that at the end of this, the characteristics that we defined for every Hoosier child were going to need to be linked to indicators. And we felt like if we had 13, that it may be way too much. And so we felt like anything more than 3 to 5 would be too much. So we landed on 5, and we'll talk about those 5 today. Guiding principles of this work and of this profile is we wanted to really personalize this and think about the whole learner, to be future focused. Again, I liken, or every time we talk about this, we talk about Jamie Marasotis at the Lumina Foundation, and their goal, Governor Holcomb's goal, everybody's goal to have 60% of the workforce by 2025 with some type of post-secondary credential. And the reason is, I was on a panel with Jamie down in Connorsville. Dr. Jenner and I were talking about work-based learning and Indiana GPS. And Jamie mentioned that last March, the Department of Labor statistics showed that 916,000 new jobs were created across the United States. And out of those 916,000 new jobs, only 7,000 required a high school diploma or less. And so I think that's real telling of how this economy has shifted, going back to well before the Great Recession of 2008. And the demand is really for skill development. And so James Clifton, I often like to cite James Clifton from Gallup and his work in the Coming Jobs War. And his point was, we have to move beyond this system. If the economy has shifted, if the workforce has shifted, and like Daniel Pink points out in A Whole New Mind, automation and the abundance of resources and the rise of the Asian middle class are disrupting the way our economy is working across the entire world. We have to shift how we prepare students. And so we really need to think about what are the knowledge, skills, and dispositions we're developing for students and providing for students to prepare them for post K-12. And that really needs to be very personalized. We also need to elevate the 3 E's. We talk about enrollment, enlistment, in employment. We need to ensure that we have these pathways and that they're not either or, they're both and. And I always like to say that I feel like I have lived all three. I went to the Air Force. The Air Force paid the Montgomery GI Bill, paid for my undergrad, and obviously I'm employed at the Department of Education. And so it doesn't have to be exclusive. These 3 E's, they can work in tandem and should work in tandem. As we think about employment, we need to continue with enrollment or continue to learn and grow, and most likely develop our skills. Again, going back to Clifton's book in A Coming Jobs War, he points out that if we're going to really do this and shift how we educate children, K-12 cannot do this alone. And so and we're not really talking about the indicators, and you can find the indicators if you go to the department website and look up Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed. You'll find the headline indicators that we had affirmed by the state board in December. But some of the indicators that have I think raised questions, or sometimes school leaders will look at and say, Jason, kindergarten readiness, I appreciate that, but at the same time, it's not in K-12. Kindergarten readiness happens before K-12, so I don't really have maybe responsibility is not the right word, but I don't have control over that. And then when you look at the longitudinal outcomes of the indicators at the end of the K-12 or beyond the K-12 experience, the same thing is said. But we have to understand that if we're going to do this and do this for all students, then we need a dashboard to be able to inform us how many of our children are coming into our K-12 systems not prepared or ready to learn. What is the kindergarten readiness? Is it 4 out of 10 kids coming to us, 5 out of 10 kids coming to us, 6? How many are coming to us prepared? And if they're not, how are we as a community, not just the K-12 system, but how are we as a K-12, higher ed, industry, economic development, philanthropy, our chambers, how are we coming together as a community and ensuring that it's 10 out of 10 kids are coming to us prepared to learn at the beginning of the K-12 experience, and then really understanding what those true outcomes are when they leave, as Ms. Flora Jones likes to say, the Monday after graduation. And so we need to build these strategic partnerships and see this as a community effort and not just a K-12 effort. And again, this data story needs to be transparent and nimble and not just using proxies anymore, but a true story so that we can make adjustments. I like to tell Dr. Keller at the department is really pushing data modernization and how do we get data flowing from schools to the department so that it's this automatic continuous flow of data. And we are looking at attendance. This year is the first time ever in our history where we've been able to have updated attendance from day to day, week to week. And it was really telling in that first policy movement by Governor Holcomb regarding the pandemic and masks, where we were able to not quarantine. And we saw within a week attendance rates spike due to that policy change. And so again, that ability to evaluate a policy within a week, as opposed to historically that would have been something we wouldn't really have been able to understand until the end of the year. So building a data dashboard to be able to really shift quickly. This idea of a profile beyond academic mastery is a major paradigm shift. We are, and again, in most of your profiles, you're looking at skill development. And so what I think, again, is really exciting for us as a state is that we have now, with the Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed, a statewide profile, but then we're also attaching indicators to measure success. And that is really unique, really novel across the country. And in doing so, we can tell, as I've said several times, a more complete data narrative that is much more nuanced and complex than just a single test score. And again, looking to elevate skills and dispositions along with knowledge acquisition. And so very excited about this opportunity. I think we can move on to, again, as I said, the goal of this is to be able to tell a truer data story, and really have this robust view of student performance as there are, and again, a comprehensive view of that performance as they're moving through our K-12 systems. We have, as we were looking at characteristics, we have engaged the field and stakeholders across the field. And then as we did the indicators, the headline indicators, we did the same. And we continue where we currently reside is building out the data rules. So 21st Century Scholars is one of the headline indicators. So what is it that what are the data rules or the business rules surrounding 21st Century Scholars that we want to report out? Ninth grade on track, kindergarten readiness. What are the business rules? And so right now the department is seeking input from the field, and I would love to hear from you on, after you look at those headline indicators, what are the questions, or what is the input? What are the things you would like to see when it comes to 21st Century Scholars? And so that is the work right now. Again, this is a Indiana graduate profile, and has been designed by Hoosiers through and through. And again, this is to really empower state and local collaboration. Our goal, Dr. Jenner's goal, and the goal of the department is really to activate and engage with the field. I often say that I think sometimes as educators we get this. There's a story told about being compliance based, but really we've been living within a system and we've learned how to do that system really well. But I think it's led us to be this compliance based, and again, historically there were punitive measures if we weren't, and so it led us to play the game, if you will. The goal of this is really to activate the field, and again, thinking about a profile of a grad. How do we have the characteristics, we have the indicators. How does this live and breathe in your school systems and in your community? And so again, we're taking the time right now to research and develop those rules. Some things we have: third grade literacy. We haven't decided that that's iRead, but we have iRead. We could land that now because we have iRead scores as an indicator. Grades 3 through 8 employability standards or micro credentials. we are working on pilots right now to develop that, but we haven't landed that. So the goal of this dashboard is to land in the fall of this year. There will be indicators that we have and we know we have for this fall, but there may be some that we still need to try out and still need to pilot in the coming years. And so right now is a lot of time developed or dedicated to research and the development of those indicators. I would also say the design of the dashboard, and it's this chicken egg phenomenon where the dashboard design and the business rules kind of go hand in hand. And so we're designing those right now. Again, the charge has been from Dr. Jenner is let us lead this country in a dashboard design. This should not be, and this isn't speaking disparagingly of Compass or InView, but let's not make it like that next one. Let's do something completely new in living these principles. So there's also been a conversation about educator pipeline and financial dashboards. We have some financial dashboards. We're working on a supply and demand. Dr. Estes is landing supply and demand job board here, I believe March 14th. We've heard, like, could we have things like class ratios and things like that to tell this story? We wanted to make sure this is student focused. And while that information is still valuable to the K-12 system and to our educators, it may be a part of a different dashboard, not this dashboard. We want this dashboard to really be focused on students. And then we want to hear from you and continue to involve you along the way. So these are the 5 characteristics. As I said, we've moved beyond academic mastery. This is the space we've lived in. I'm really excited about career and post-secondary readiness, credentials, and experiences, because we've done a lot of random acts of dual credit and AP and IB, and this really pulls them together in credentials and experiences that lead into pathways and credentials of currency. Communication, collaboration, and work ethic. Some people ask, like, why did we choose these as the skills? These can be found in the Indiana employability standards. And so they've been in existence. They just have not been elevated to this as a profile of a grad. There's 7 competencies under work ethic. And then finally, civic, financial, digital literacy. And we've been doing pieces of this throughout. A lot of it has been what we'd like to maybe one-off. We want to really streamline and see this live in a comprehensive K-12 system. And I think that about does it. I just to recap on the profile. Again, the profile, those 5 characteristics were affirmed in October. Sometimes, and again, some school leaders who are leading efforts right now on a profile of a grad, I just want to say this is not an either or. This is required of everyone in the state of Indiana. But if I'm leading a district, I'm wanting to engage all my community members. Again, if I want to activate my community. And so there may be characteristics that you want to add to this, or these may be the 5 that really describe the characteristic of your local grad. And so with that being said, we're continuing to move through the data rules, the business rules, and the dashboard design for a rollout in this fall. And if anybody has any input, please feel free to reach out to me.
Jason, thank you for your leadership in this effort. As you and I have talked many times, this to me can provide a framework for school systems to really focus on what is ultimately in the best interest of students, to find that best fit for their life after high school, will benefit our communities and our state as a whole. And so I'm really excited about what the Indiana GPS system can bring to the table to help to move this effort forward. And thank you so much for your leadership, and we look forward to more to come.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for having us. And again, look forward to working with people in the future.
We'll be back with at 1:30, and I'll be doing a follow-up, providing an example of what a portrait of a graduate can look like, a process and an example. And we look forward to seeing you at 1:30. Thank you.